Happy Tuesday evening, everybody. This is day 20 of the Lindsay Clancy trial. The recap thereof, I'm joined by my good friend Lauren Knighty, who's all ready to go at midnight her time. And
you're taking the lead on this because it's too late for me.
Oh, well, I certainly had a lot to say. I have been watching throughout the day, and I just had several thoughts about the Commonwealth, their theory of the case, their presentation, the performance of their experts, how nobody's in unison, how nobody's aligned, how they've taken an archaic approach towards mental health in this trial. They've been completely tone deaf. They've turned an inherently unsympathetic defendant into a sympathetic character by virtue of their inability to read the room. They have no ability to scheme or plan or strategize with their expert witnesses. All of them were in disagreement with each other. All of them disagreed with their main theory of the case, thesis of the case, which was initially at opening statements. Remember, Lindsay Clancy was not supposed to be postpartum anything. She wasn't supposed to be psychotic, postpartum anxious, postpartum depression. She wasn't supposed to have been bipolar. She was simply depressed, didn't like the life that she was living, was dismissive of her husband and her 3 children, and was overwhelmingly controlling. And therefore, she plotted this plan to take the lives of her 3 children and fake a suicide, somehow surviving it all. And to which we're like, what are they going at? What are they getting at with all
There
of this?
have been like hints here and there that could have supported their theory, but it's so all over the place between people who were testifying that it just doesn't make sense. And also some of that stuff that they, wanted to go with in the beginning, like that this was a fake suicide attempt. I'm like, that's not a good thing to try to argue. It's not going to go in your favor. So,
and it worked out even worse than that because they changed their theory mid-trial. Mid-presentation of their evidence.
Which time, dude? There's been at least 2 or 3 times.
Like the judge is like, it seems to me like you're trying to suggest that she faked the suicide. It's like, we never said that she faked the suicide. We're just trying to say that she went about it in a highly inefficient way. And it's like,
yeah,
what? And so their theory of the case was preposterous.
The thing that bothers me a lot when people talk about the suicide attempt, this was a highly inefficient way. I understand that is true, that if you just look at the marks on her, that is a highly inefficient way to try to off yourself, save for the whole flying out the window thing. But it was on a second story, which most people probably survive, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this was a comment that I saw earlier that reminded me, like, this is what was bothering me so much about people saying that the attempt wasn't real, or that's why it wasn't her. You can tell it wasn't her because she didn't do it right. She's a nurse. She knows how to cut herself. Those are hesitation marks. So if you want to harm yourself, even if you are a nurse or a doctor, it doesn't matter. Your body does not want to harm itself. So it's going to, you're going to have hesitation, whether you're conscious about it or not. So having superficial marks on her wrists, her neck, that doesn't mean anything to me, except that she was so exceedingly intent on harming herself that she went against her bodily instincts.
Well, what makes it worse is that her own experts, the Commonwealth's own experts, had completely, by maybe day 9 or 10, abandoned that entire theory. So, okay, let's stop enough with the fake suicide thing and just call it what it is. And then she had experts go up there to say that she had symptoms of mania, and others go up to there and say that she had no symptoms of mania. Some said that she had depression. Some said she had anxiety. None of them said that she had elements of psychosis, although she had these red flags, intrusive thoughts. Were those voices? Were those something else? I don't know. We had Dr. Shaw say that if you're psychotic, you could be completely normal. And they wanted to keep on harping on this idea that because she was acting normal, that's evidence that she wasn't psychotic, which is counterintuitive to modern medicine and how they treat mental illness. According to their most recent experts from today and yesterday, and from Dr. Resnick, who is the most qualified out of every expert that's testified in this case. And so we're going to talk about all of that. I'm going to share more about why I think this is the worst prosecutorial presentation of evidence that I've ever seen. I honestly can't think of a worse. When we come back in about 32 seconds.
Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney, No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started.
So I had to do that intro so that I'm not accused of, why is your thumbnails all clickbait? He's like, no, that's what I was really going to say. And I said it within the first 5 seconds. And so that's my introduction. And I got more to say on it, but we're going to be going for a while. We're also going to be recapping the entire day of testimony and talking about these experts. And I have a lot to say about Reddington as an attorney. I don't know. I am a lawyer, and I find myself getting sucked in to Reddington's presentation of the case. Whenever I'm looking for answers in this case, I'm more often than not listening to him. And it's gotten to the point where every time the Commonwealth opens their mouth, I'm like, oh, let's just wait till they're done, until either the judge or Reddington speaks, because I'm done listening to they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what direction they want to go in. What's been your impression so far of everything?
I think he's a really good attorney. I think he's doing a really good job. However, there have been some times when he was questioning these experts, and I wish I could think of a specific example right now, but over the last couple of days when he's questioning the experts, where I'm like, hey, you don't have to be so pissy with them. I think that didn't really help, but overall, I think he's compelling. I think that he's doing a good job of, discrediting them in the way that he's trying to do. I love these experts. Like, they don't really have any solid foundation in postpartum psychosis. So he kind of hits on that really well. I think that there were some questions when he's like questioning about the DSM and such. The experts kind of have the upper hand there, but there's just been a couple points here and there where it was like, I don't think you need to be quite so antagonistic, because it would be more effective if you were just kind of going along with the conversation, and you get antagonistic at the parts where you really know you're correct. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you why I think it works. I think because the Commonwealth has been so antagonistic for no reason with their own witnesses, and for innocent witnesses. I mean, the mortal sin question to the grandmother. What was that all about? Reddington hasn't had a moment like that. He hasn't pitched a perfect game by any measure. But because the Commonwealth has taken on this antagonistic approach, it's given him permission to approach it the same way. And maybe that's his personality to begin with. I get the impression that, he's going to do what he's been doing this long enough. He's going to do it the way that he wants to do it. And nobody's going to tell him otherwise. But he also knows that it's effective. And he's not out there throwing haymakers and missing. Like, generally, when he goes antagonistic on an expert, it's because he has a really good point to make about why you should not take this guy seriously. Like, he completely dismantled Dr. Mack from yesterday. He completely dismantled, what's the guy's name? It's not.
Start with an H.
Heilbrun. Was it
Yeah. I can't remember. I know it starts with an H.
I keep wanting to say Heilbrun. It's Hellman. My apologies. Dismantled him today on the stand. And he was actually a really good witness for the prosecution, I thought. He's been practicing. Heilbrun. Yeah. My wife keeps raising her hand to correct me. It's something like that. I think she has something good to say, and then she's like, just correcting me. I lost what I was going to say. But no, he's actually he's been practicing, I think, since 1978 or something like that. So for 48 years, I mean, he rivals Resnick in terms of at least years of experience, not in terms of comprehensive experience. And you heard Reddington lay into him and some of that stuff. He made some really good points about external and internal voices and instances of reality with respect to auditory controlling hallucinations, showing that she had some connection to reality, which is highly unusual for somebody to have a controlling auditory hallucination. When they're exhibiting these ties to reality, that's usually not one and the same. It's extremely unusual. I thought he made a really good point there. But then Reddington, and here's the difference, because you said it yourself. Reddington could be unnecessarily antagonistic and a little, you said pissy. I would never use that word, but you use it. So I'm using it.
Pissy.
He's antagonistic and pissy. But I think he just does it in a way where he comes off passionate and convicted in his beliefs. He's not doing it in a I need to win at all cost kind of way, the way that the Commonwealth has gone after this, to the point where they're literally antagonizing and arguing with their own experts, their own witnesses, the victim's grandmother, and the like. And it's just been a stylistic difference. And look, it's often the case that criminal defense attorneys present better than prosecutors.
Okay.
Why is it that way? I've always had the belief just usually they have shittier facts. The prosecution, more often than not, has a winning case. There's a reason why they have 97% conviction rate, and it has nothing to do with their ability. It's just most of the people that stand trial in criminal court tend to be guilty. They got arrested for something, and most of them don't want to risk trial, so they'll plead out and whatnot. And so there's that. And so defense attorneys, they have to work harder if they're going to put on a case. They have to endear themselves to the jury. They have to do all of the intangible things to become more credible than the prosecution. Otherwise, they're dead where they stand. And so there's that. And I'll tell you what, there's this other aspect to being a prosecutor, which is when I was a lawyer in utero, when I was a DA intern. I was literally in law school. And I've told this story many times, but the story goes like this. They allow you to do court appearances when you're a law student, when you're supervised by the DA. So I'd go in these motions, like motions to suppress evidence, and I would argue the motion. Bail motions, I would go in and argue the bail motion, and it'd be all like, it's literally like a 2 to 3 to 5 minute argument or whatever. And it's just like this common ho-hum thing for everybody else. But for a law student aspiring to be a lawyer, it's like, holy shit. And so you're staying up all night trying to prepare and making sure that you got all your P's and Q's and everything and your research, and you're overly prepared, right? And so you get in there, and I remember it was this bail hearing. And there was this guy, and he was maybe 32 years old. Me and him are about the same age at the time. No, he was older. I was like 30. He was 32. And the only thing he had on his rap sheet was marijuana possession charges. Literally possession of marijuana, which has since become legal in California. You could possess it, you could own it, you could purchase it, you could smoke it, sometimes in public, and nobody gives a shit, right? But back then, I mean, he had, going back 12 years, multiple charges for possession of marijuana. They're marijuana-related charges. And he was trying to get reduced bail because he had this daughter that he was tending to, and she was special needs, and she required special care, and he was a big part of her special care, and he just was hoping for a reduced bail. With all the theory that I've never committed a violent offense, all these, whatever marijuana charges. And the thing that the person that was supervising me wanted me to say was, this is what you're going to say. Because I had my presentation already. I was honestly ready to just like concede and leave it up to the judge. Look, these are his charges. I mean, I'll leave it at, he's got a rap sheet, but it's true that he has no violent offenses. And so the judge's discretion. But the thing that the DA wanted me to say was, this guy's a lifelong offender. He's been an offender since he was 18 years old. He's got multiple drug charges. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to his community. And for all we know, he could be a danger to his daughter. And there was something about that that just rubbed me the wrong way. And not all prosecutors are like that. Right. But there were certainly buzzwords and an attitude and something that you become. Some prosecutors, not all, because they run the gamut. But there are some prosecutors that just put on this shell of having to win every stupid little thing for no reason. They lose their humanity, they lose their empathy, they lose their ability to use discretion. They view themselves as the purveyors of judgments, the carriers of the hammer in which they're going to hammer you into submission. And what are you going to do about it, bitch? Taking a trial then. How much is it going to cost you? 20, 30, 40, 50,000, $100,000 in private counsel? Counsel, roll the dice, bitch, or take my plea. You will do 90 days of county jail. You will do 36 months of summary probation. You will pay a fine of $2,500 and will reserve on restitution. And if you ever do it again, commit any small little stupid crime, we're going to hit you with a violation of probation. They're just these weighty charges and stuff that happens when you accept a plea deal like that. My rant is over on that. Let me relate it back to this case. The Commonwealth is very much of that ilk. Win every battle, say whatever you have to say to win every battle, no matter the cost. It doesn't matter if you have to go in on the grandmother. It doesn't matter if you have to go in on our experts. It doesn't matter if you have to offend the public. You're going to win this effing case. The general public be damned. And they've taken that approach, and it's been so off-putting. And I don't know if it's a common thing in the Commonwealth. I watched the Karen Reed trial, and I don't remember them being this bad. I mean, it was bad. There were definitely bad elements of it, but to be this bad, and it's not just the tenor of their presentation. It's the disjointedness of it all. They had a theory that they've completely abandoned. And if I, as an objective viewer of this case, am to be of the belief that Lindsay Clancy is not criminally responsible because she was insane or psychotic at the time, it will have nothing to do with anything the Commonwealth did. And it will be everything to do with my evaluation, independent of them, of the evidence that came in on this case.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
I mean, the prosecutors I feel like they could have done a much better job if they approached this from a more, I'm not even going to say nuanced, I don't think that's the word, but just a more forgiving perspective as it comes to just having a mental illness. If they just acknowledged that she had a mental illness that was causing her to have these symptoms, however, just hammered in on she could have controlled herself, she could have stopped it, she could have followed through with talk therapy more. She could have gone to one of the programs that the Women's Center gave her for recommendations when she was discharged, and she chose not to. And she, had these symptoms, yes, and that impaired her functioning as far as she didn't want to go back to work. However, it didn't impair her to the point that she couldn't stop herself from killing her children. That's kind of the approach I would have taken. No, and I think they've overdone it. I think they've been a mess. I think they've been all over the place. The changing positions doesn't help. I think there was a narrower scope they could have taken and been more effective at, but they didn't do that.
I think you're absolutely right. I think the correct approach, I think it said about a week ago, like there was a world where they could have presented the case. And now that I have a more or less comprehensive picture of what their evidence was, they could have presented a case where, yeah, sure, maybe there were different diagnoses. Maybe there was a lot of doctors that couldn't definitively diagnose her with a mental illness. But there's a reason for that, probably because she didn't have psychosis. There's one person that said that she had psychosis. Everybody else said that she didn't. The reality of it is that Lindsay Clancy is a sympathetic figure. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that she was depressed. It's okay to say that she had postpartum issues. It's okay to say that she was overwhelmed. It's okay to say that she was in over her head. It's okay to say that she was struggling. Like every one of you out there, individual people struggle every day. And the difference is that you, as you sit there in that chair in the juror's box, never took the ultimate measure that Lindsay Clancy did. It wasn't a moment of psychosis. It was a moment of weakness, and there's a difference. It's okay to be sympathetic to her plight as it was happening. But what we can't forgive is where it led to. And we're not going to pretend that it was psychosis because you guys are smarter than that. She's been examined by multiple different medical professionals that have all had the same opinion, regardless of diagnosis, that she wasn't psychotic.
Let me ask you something about this conversation about...
Before you do that, that's not my personal opinion of the case. I'm just saying that would have been a better approach than what they've taken. I didn't want people to mistake that being my own. I have my own theory of the case, but I'll let you go. No,
I wonder if is there anything that the prosecution could have done to make these questions about religion admissible?
No. Well, there's a way to present it. Right. The way that they were trying to present it is that the fact that her religious upbringing was a thing, meaning that inherently she had the knowledge of right and wrong, which is a stupid approach.
I actually think it's really important because people with psychosis and thought disorder, religious preoccupation is a big thing for a lot of people.
That would have been a way that would have been the way to approach it, though. Like if Lindsay made any religious observation in treatment, that would have been a way to bring it in. But
she did.
That would have been the way to get it in and then ask questions about that. But asking her grandmother,
they just really fucked that up because that's a really big thing, and they really fucked that up.
Yeah, well, number one, it's inadmissible for a couple of reasons. I don't think that Reddington wanted a mistrial. Is it a mistriable issue though?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it can be. Is it going to be a huge appealable issue if she is ultimately found guilty? Yes, because they're trying to introduce her growing up religious to define what the Commonwealth has to prove, which is that she had the ability to decipher between right or wrong. You don't get to say that because she had Catholic ties. That's evidence that she knew the difference between right or wrong. That's appropriate. That has no tangential tie to Lindsay Clancy. That's why it's an appealable issue.
So I know they didn't establish that, and they probably couldn't based on what they did, but like this religious preoccupation or religious guidance kind of in these kinds of situations, a lot of times it is what leads you to violence. It is what leads, for example, we've had a number of male patients who came in and they tried to cut off their genitals because they thought they had sinned based on what the church said that they're allowed to do outside of marriage. We had, people who would hurt themselves and they would feel deep regret based on, they heard God's voice telling them what you're doing is wrong. There's a lot of different ways that religion can play into that. And a lot of times the religion is in line with what they actually believe, their actual faith in real life. And sometimes it's not, though. So, it's not always like sometimes you can hear the voice of God and he's telling you something completely opposite of what you hear every day in church if you're very religious. But like there was a chance here for if that were somehow admissible for them to kind of bring that up and say, hey, suicide is against the religious beliefs that she holds very deeply. And this doesn't make sense.
Well, I don't believe that ever came out of Lindsay's mouth with any of her, the people that treated her that took notes. And so there's a reason why you're aware that there was some kind of religious, like, for example, when the chaplain came in and she was talking about heaven and go to God, some of that testimony came in. Some of those things came in because that came straight out of Lindsay's mouth. Mm-hmm. But you have to understand that there's this McCule test. There's 2 prongs to it, right? One of the prongs is that whether or not she lacked the substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct, right? So to assert that, she was raised Catholic, you don't know what Lindsay Clancy's Catholic views were. And so you're weaponizing her association with her religious faith that hasn't been established in trial as a basis to convict her. That's appealable. That's 100% appealable. And it is grounds for a mistrial. It hasn't become a mistrial yet because of the judge's firm instructions. The reason why he was so firm on that is you can't, or to disregard this theory of mortal sin. There's no evidentiary connection between mortal sin and Lindsay Clancy in this case. And they're not going to allow her to get it in through the grandmother. When the expert yesterday, right before the mistrial motion, started talking about her Catholic upbringing. You're not allowed to weaponize her Catholic upbringing in that way and draw deductions from it because it didn't come from Lindsay Clancy herself. You're weaponizing her upbringing against her in a way that's impermissible. That's why it would cause a mistrial. That's why it's an appealable issue. That's why it pissed off the judge so much, because every time it comes up like that, and I really believe that the prosecutor is doing it on purpose, like she's asking questions that is necessarily going to lead this expert to start talking about those things, even though, of course, she's going to deny it.
I mean, there's just such a difference in the way these things are presented in a court versus trying to get to the bottom of somebody's motives and what happened when you're just talking to them as a physician or a healthcare provider. Like I've seen psychiatrists, psychologists interview, and I've sat in on interviews where most of the conversation was about religion because it had so much to do with why they got to where they are. It's just weird to me that like, I understand it, but it's like that feels like a huge piece of the puzzle that's not being brought in.
Well, just put it this way. Put it this way: if Lindsay Clancy came in and said to her, to her examiners or to whoever was treating her, "I've committed a mortal sin. I'll never be forgiven," or starts talking about heaven and hell, and starts talking about her beliefs about God and the Catholic religion, all of that's coming in. It's admissible because those are observations of things that happen from people that directly observed her talking about those things. But it would be no different than, let's just say that I have no idea what religion you are, But let's just say that you grew up in a Mormon household, and somebody asks your mom, because you're in trial, and says, oh, well, she grew up in a Mormon household, she must know the difference between right or wrong. Who in the hell would I be to make any deduction from the way Mormons view right and wrong versus how you view right and wrong? I've not had those conversations with you. I've not had the ability to examine your innermost thoughts towards right or wrong, good and evil, and those such kinds of things. It would be completely inadmissible and irrelevant, the tenor of the religious beliefs in your household. What is admissible and what is relevant is what comes directly out of your mouth. What did you believe at the time? Okay. That's why the stuff about her children are in heaven, or she was believing that she was going to get into heaven, go to God, those kinds of statements are in. They're admissible because it came out of Lindsay's mouth from people that observed her. Mm-hmm. There were some other people that said, how come those statements get to come in and not others? I'd imagine there's probably a stipulation to it because it's in their notes and they're allowed to go into their notes. And rather than just go through the whole thing to save time, let's just stipulate, sure, you could talk about that statement particularly. That's the difference. And so you're thinking logically, though. That's really important. I want to know what her religious beliefs are. The problem is, I don't know what Lindsay's religious beliefs are. I have no idea. I mean, hell, I grew up in a Catholic house, and then it was Catholic and then sort of Christian. And then my grandma would like speak in tongues, and like the family would like speak in tongues. And it was the 80s, right? So televangelist.
What's going on with grandma?
Oh, well, she's gone now, but it was a phase like in the 80s. In the 80s, people would do that kind of thing, and they would just like start blabbering on, speaking in tongues. I've never done that shit. That I guarantee you that the fact that they did those things, it left an impression on me, but not one where I adopted it as my religious belief. And so that's the point. And that's why it was so upsetting to the judge when it came out the way that it did. Mm-hmm. I hope that clears that up. Yeah. Anyway, did you have any more things you wanted to get off your chest before we get into this testimony?
Nope. Nothing I can think of.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to resume with Dr. Heilbrun.
Cool.
And one of the things that I wanted to point out before we start with this is that there is just this difference. There's a few lawyers out there that exist that if they're opposing counsel on my case, it's like, yeah, they're just a better attorney than me. They're just way better. They're way smarter. They know what they're doing a lot better than I. And Reddington would be one of those people. Yeah. Like he just does whatever he wants. And it's not even like by the book. It's not textbook. It's not taught anywhere. He just does what he wants. But he does it because of his experience. Like he's allowed. Not that he's allowed, but he can be pissy and gratuitously antagonistic on cross-examination, and nobody would get mad at him about it because it will be interpreted as, oh, well, maybe he's being a dick. But he's really passionate about his belief in his client, which is how it comes off, which is how most people talk about Reddington, love him or hate him. One thing you will not hear anybody say is that he doesn't passionately believe in Lindsay Clancy. That's all. So Heilbrun gets in and he testifies. He's resuming from yesterday. And I'm going to pick it up where at 107, where he talks about many ongoing decisions to accomplish a killing. I thought this was really interesting when he started talking about just the thought process of Lindsay Clancy. So let me pick it up at 107. I got to share my screen first. I'm so ill prepared. I'm like not on my game when you come into the stream. I forgot how to do this.
It's okay.
All right, let me share my screen and then we'll get started. I'm going to put it at 1.25.
Okay.
So that we could make good time and we'll take it from there. I'll put it in theater mode like you taught me how to do. And let's go.
The records are in your conversation with her.
She did. She talked about feeling like it wasn't her, like she was watching herself, like she was going through what she called no thinking, no decision making, only responding to the voice and taking action.
And when she said that there was no decision making involved, did you see anything about in the records or in her detailing of what happened that was inconsistent with that claim that there was no decision making?
Yeah, This is difficult, but important to say. There are just many ongoing decisions that have to be made to accomplish a killing like this in 18 to 20 minutes. For example, why the basement? Who among the children goes first? What do you say to the kids to keep them from panicking? There are other examples, but
Yeah, hold on.
And so what types of decisions, without getting to what she might have said or thought, what are some types of decisions that had to be made to effectuate the strangulation of the children?
well, I tried to give some examples a minute ago, and I don't want to go too.
All right, hold on. Just answer the question. All right. Don't comment on the rulings of the court. Just answer the question, please.
She already said.
I didn't. I couldn't really tell what he said.
That was a throwback to yesterday when, like, I tried to give my opinions, but then I got yelled at, and this the judge like, don't comment on my rulings, just answer the question, guy. I got to play that a bit. It made me laugh when I heard it earlier.
All right, hold on.
But
Yeah, hold on.
And so what types of decisions, without getting to what she might have said or thought, what are some types of decisions that had to be made to effectuate the strangulation of the children?
well, I tried to give some examples a minute ago, and I don't want to go too.
All right, hold on. Just answer the question. All right. Don't comment on the rulings of the court. Just answer the question, please.
It's a really bad look when your expert witness gets yelled at by the judge. It just looks bad.
Well, I couldn't hear what Kevin was saying, so that's why I didn't really catch that. I was kind of confused.
Oh, well, he was referring to something that I guess happened a little bit earlier. I thought he was talking about what happened yesterday but either way, the judge is pissed at him. He's tired of his bullshit. And so, but my point is that this is probably their best expert out of all the experts that they've had. He's certainly the most qualified, and he's getting yelled at by the judge. It's just such a bad look. They tried to do this yesterday with Resnick, and it just didn't come off. And I had this opinion about the Commonwealth when they were doing their cross-exam against Resnick, that they were going for trying to get him to admit that he ordered the code red, and it just wasn't working out.
Yeah.
And she just completely botched it. And I'd imagine it's going to be one of these things that she's thinking about for months. And now here we are, where this guy is now getting chastised by the judge, and the jury's supposed to figure out who they're supposed to believe. I promise you, if your expert is getting yelled at by the judge, it's probably not going to be. That's all.
Okay.
If I could rephrase.
Yeah.
Doctor, the choice of where to strangle the children, does that have to be a choice of where that happens?
Yes.
The decision of how to strangle them, is that a decision that needs to be made?
Yes.
What to use to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
I'm sorry, I have to object. No, overruled. I'll allow that.
What to use to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
Yes, it is.
The order in which to strangle the children, is that a decision that has to be made?
That's another example of the decision. Yes. Decisions.
And the way in which to kill herself, were those decisions that had to be made?
Yes, they were.
Now, you said that this peritraumatic disassociation seems like it would be a sign of psychosis, but isn't. Why isn't it?
It's actually something that is much more commonly experienced in that kind of set of circumstances than psychotic symptoms.
And yesterday, when you went through the two options that you considered, that this was psychosis with command hallucinations or suicide with altruistic filicide, is your testimony that it's either or it's one or the other?
It's my testimony that those were the two possibilities that seem to have some evidence. But at the end of talking to her, testing, reviewing all the information, doing the collateral interviews, everything I did as a part of this evaluation, the evidence much more strongly, in my opinion, supported the second explanation, which was the serious suicide attempt accompanied by killing the children out of love.
Now, you interviewed.
See, when I was listening to this earlier today, I was like, that was my wife's whole theory like 3 weeks ago. But it was not what the Commonwealth was going with. They were going with fake suicide, and there was nothing wrong with her.
Talking about altruistic filicide?
Right. But this doctor says, no, I don't think that's what happened. I think that what you just said, altruistic filicide, and look at you coming in with the buzzwords. Well, he specifically said that. I don't remember when, but I remember him saying, I think it was yesterday. But yeah, this is what I mean by their entire theory of the case is just flip flops, which is just I don't know, man. I've said my piece on that.
It's a pretty big flip
2
flop.
days, the first day and the third day, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And were there any differences in her demeanor or her way of answering questions between the first day and the third day?
Yes, I interviewed her and worked with her on testing for 3 days. And during the first and the second day, she was quite attuned to the question. Her recollection was good, even considering that we were more than 3 years away from some of the events in question. She had, I thought, a very good memory for dates and medications and dosages and times and other relevant details. And she continued to be attentive and responsive, good attention, concentration, that sort of thing on the second day. On the third day, when we were talking about mental state at the time of the offense and the circumstances of what was going on with the alleged offense, she appeared to me much more cautious and guarded.
And can you give us some examples of that?
So like this part of the testimony, everything I've set aside, it caught my attention because I'm looking for evidence of she was completely attached to reality. And that's partly because of what he said yesterday, because there's indicators, and maybe you could speak more to that than I can, that there's this delusional box that you're in where you're completely unaware of what's real and what's not. But she seemed to have a firm grip on reality, which is different than being delusional. And so in a state of psychosis where you can appear to mask as normal, what would you make of it to somebody that is so tethered in reality that they're able to function to this high of a degree?
I mean,
don't know what I'm saying, but what do you think about that?
It can be like distortions of reality. So say, you know where you are, you know what you're doing. So like if you're in the hospital, you know you're in the hospital. You know you're in the hospital because somebody came to your house and said, your parents called us, you're saying you're having a mental health emergency, we're bringing you here, but you're also having this distorted perception of, what people around you are thinking and who they are and what intentions they have. Like you might have delusions where you think you're being persecuted, where you think you're paranoid and you think that people are trying to hurt you, or the medicine they're trying to give you is going to make you worse or kill you. It doesn't mean you don't know anything, right? Like you can know where you are and why, and you can know who the people around you are, but you can have a total distortion in another aspect.
So then of what value would you put being tethered to various points of reality with respect to being delusional?
I mean, it's going to depend on the person and the circumstances. So it's tricky. I really can't answer that, I don't think.
So the main thing that I've gotten from this witness so far, the most valuable information is essentially that when we're talking about delusional, just be careful if they have multiple tethers to reality, which is seems to be what he's arguing, in spite of all the nonsense that is going on in between. Yeah. And so I'll let him continue.
Yeah. She more frequently said, I don't remember, I don't recall, that sort of thing during the third day than the second or the first. For one example, I asked her about wearing a smartwatch, which she had carried a phone, carried a smartwatch as well. And one of the things I asked her is what wrist she wore it on. This was on the third day, and she said, I don't remember.
And did you also ask her about her statement at Brigham and Women's when she woke up and said she was horrified?
I did. Now, that statement was not a statement so much as it was a written. She woke up in having regained consciousness that evening. She was intubated, so she couldn't speak. But they asked her questions, and she wrote down the answer, and they asked her, how are you feeling or what's your mood? And what she said was, what she wrote was horrified.
And when you asked her about that on that third day of interviewing, what was her response?
She said, I don't remember writing that, and I don't remember why I would have been horrified.
And did you also ask her about the statement she made at Brigham and Women's, either verbally or on the writing it down, about how she said that one of the reasons she killed the children was because she thought they would suffer?
Where are you? Are you in my report there?
Referring to the records at Brigham and Women's where she told.
No, she can refer to where she's looking to direct his attention if you review those.
You reviewed the Brigham and Women's records, correct?
I did, yes.
And the portion where it says that she told a treatment provider that she had to kill the kids to kill herself because the kids would suffer. Do you recall that statement?
Yes, I do recall that statement.
And when you asked her about it on the third day of interviewing her, did she recall that statement?
Yes, that statement in Brigham and Women's to the attending psychiatrist was made in the context of her thinking about what happened. Well, let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, she was asked about what the voice had said on that afternoon, and her response was, it had said, you have to kill yourself so you can kill the kids, and also said the kids will suffer without you. And when I asked her about that, whether the voice had said that, she said, no, the voice only said, this is your last chance. You have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself.
So I'm going to move to strike this, not this point.
No, overruled. A lot.
So
Well, there's a couple of things there. That's a completely different statement than I've ever heard.
Okay, I didn't quite understand the difference there. Can you kind of line it up for me?
The difference between what?
That's a different statement than you've ever heard. What was the previous statement?
Well, their statement was like something along the lines of you have to kill yourself and the children, or something to that effect. I've never heard it's like a single sentence or something like that. I've never heard it in multiple sentences like what he just said, which is it's along the same lines. It's like the subject matter is the same. I've just never heard it expanded like that.
My recollection of what I've heard and what I've read was the voice was saying, according to her, the voice was saying, this is your last chance. You have to kill the children so you can kill yourself. And then I believe there was something about safety in there.
That came
something
out
about
yesterday,
safety at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but notice how they didn't object to hearsay. I'm guessing that's because they stipulated that in chambers, is they're going to allow limited hearsay for this purpose. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're just going to have to go back and refer to the notes, and it's just going to take longer. And I'm
having a really hard time hearing the defense attorney when we're like listening to this. That's why I'm having such a problem with like getting what's going on sometimes.
Oh, you're talking about Reddington when he's making his objections?
Yeah, it's like he's not speaking into the mic.
Yeah, he's definitely not. But you want to just do your best. I don't know what to tell you. Turn up the volume on your headphones. All right, I'm going to continue with this because this is a crucial bit of testimony, and then we're going to get into Reddington's cross.
Sounds good.
The two differences where at Brigham, she's saying the voice said you have to kill yourself so you can kill the children, and that the children would suffer without her, versus after that when she says the voice only said you have to kill the kids so you can kill yourself, is the fact that she's giving two different statements significant in your evaluation.
Okay, I get it now. Hold on.
I talked about in my testimony yesterday when there is inconsistency.
Okay, so that speaks to the difference between the statements as far as like the altruism goes. So like the one statement is saying it's an act of mercy basically to kill the children. The other one is just saying it's a selfish means where kill the children so you can die because you want to die so bad. It's kind of what that gives off. So it's like one is an act of selflessness in that you are trying to save them because you think that you have to kill them to save them. The other one is saying you want to kill yourself so badly and you have to kill the children so you can do that. So it's a selfish act.
And one of the things that comes out later in his testimony is that she didn't want to live without the kids, or she didn't want the children being around without her.
Yeah.
She didn't want the children to be raised without her. And so she was going to take them with her. Which was my wife's theory, like literally 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she like, after one of my shows, we did like a whole hour and a half show. And then she like was so excited to tell me, but she wouldn't get on the mic and say it. But she said it like when we went upstairs. This is what I think. It's like, oh, well, tell me about everything that you think now that the show's over and it's like bedtime. And so she did. Mm-hmm. But this was her exact theory, that she thought that Lindsay didn't want to be around, but not only that, she didn't want the children to live on without her because she thought they were better off with her, or something to that effect. Basically what the doctor said.
Yeah. I mean, and mind you, like for everyone who's listening to this, like this isn't logical. This idea that killing the children is selfless. It's not logical, But her brain, if we're to understand that and believe that she was in psychosis, is not going to think through things logically. It's going to think of it like, this is selfless for you to do this. You are doing this for them. You're doing this because they would have a terrible life without you. You're doing this because they'll be better off if you do this. So like, she has, with whatever illness that she has, based on what the defense is arguing here, she did this out of love, out of sacrifice, and she maybe didn't even want to do it based on what they're saying, but she knew that she, based on the delusions or hallucinations she was having, had to do it, versus the prosecution's theory where it's like, well, she just wanted to because she didn't want them to be raised by anyone else and she wanted to have control over their lives.
You know, I was going to bring up a Chris Watts comparison, but I just rather not. I don't want to steamroll.
I can't believe that guy got married again. I can't believe someone married that guy.
Is he really married again?
Yeah, she married him while he's in prison.
You know what? Let's not. This is a positive space.
We won't even. Yeah, let's not go there.
By the way, read your super chats.
Oh, Jennifer Vaughn 2466. Thank you for the 5 jewels. I appreciate that. Cool. I gave the 5 memberships away. That's mine.
All right.
Jennifer, thank you for the $2. Thank you for your excellent coverage of this case. Awesome. Thank you. Is that mine or yours?
No, that's yours.
Joanna, thank you for the 5 jewels. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
What is this jewels thing? What is that?
It's like a thing you can give on mobile now to creators. I don't totally understand it, but I know they are pretty and it's nice. So how about that?
I never got no jewel, man. I got no jewels.
Somebody give Omar some jewels.
I don't need jewels. I need nothing. All right. He's gonna say. I promise he's gonna say something really important.
All right.
Consistency. That's something that alerts me to the possibility of inaccuracy. And 2 statements that are mutually exclusive or inconsistent suggest to me that there is a problem. One of them, at least, is not accurate.
And Doctor, did you find any significance in your evaluation to the fact that she was able to complete a phone call with her husband during this time frame of killing the children and herself?
Yes, that was very unusual in my experience, to have a crucial time interrupted by something like a phone call, because one of the considerations there is that you then not only can document the time that it happened, and that helps be more precise about the time, but you also have whoever is on the other end of the phone. And this was her husband. When when he called her at 5:33, she didn't pick up, but she called back immediately at 5:34. And when I talked to him during the collateral interview, one of the things he said is that she sounded on the short call distracted and like she was in the middle of something, but it wasn't anything that struck him as that unusual. He said when she's home with 3 kids, she's always in the middle of something. So so that was one of the reasons that it was important. And then another reason, as I mentioned a minute ago, is it helps to establish a time frame. We know when her husband left the house, which was 5:15. We know when he came home, which was around 6 o'clock. And this is not quite in the middle of it, but close to that. And so it was unusual and valuable and important in trying to establish those kinds of things.
And when reviewing,
I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
In any way over this, or thinking only about herself, it's something that I noticed when I evaluated her in April, is that she is still grieving. She's still in mourning for those kids. And she used language like, I have lost everything and I don't want to be here. So I would not think of Lindsay Clancy as someone who is really self-centered or oriented only to herself. She is grieving her children.
And
okay, when I first heard this testimony, I was confused as to what to think. So she's grieving the loss of the children. I had so many thoughts when he said that. It was like, so does that mean that she's no longer psychotic? She's no longer suffering from the mental illness, which obviously she shouldn't be. I don't imagine she's on the same medications. She's certainly not within the same context of life. But grieving the loss of the children, does that give you any clues in terms of postpartum psychosis and delusion?
No, I don't think I could answer that, honestly. I don't know.
I guess my point
that's
was
beyond
like,
my understanding.
Yeah, my question is, why is it relevant for this person to start talking about her grieving the children? Is he trying to make a connection to her tethers to reality, or that's evidence that somehow she wasn't psychotic, or she was, because it doesn't speak to the moment, right? Like you just told me yourself, that there's like patches of reality and patches of psychosis. And so one could exist without the other, and they could exist within the same time and space in separate sections. Am I understanding that correctly?
The only thing I could think of is like, yes, that she's now grounded in reality where she knows what she's done and she knows that her children are dead. But that wouldn't really speak to how she was in the moment. So it almost supports the defense's theory. So this guy confuses me because he says things that are very much in support of the defense, and then sometimes he says things that are totally against kind of what they're going at. So it's very confusing to me.
I agree, and I've oftentimes found myself wondering why the Commonwealth is asking certain questions and eliciting certain answers. But I thought that maybe you could shed some light on it.
Well, I suppose that if she's grieving them now, then she knows that she did something awful. Therefore, it was not right to kill them or altruistic to kill them. It was, she did something evil. But like that, he's not really establishing that, and so I don't think that's where they're going with this. And I'm very confused.
You and me both, my friend.
Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday the emphasis she had on control of thought and control of her life. How did that come into play in your evaluation in terms of what was done here?
One of the considerations is why she got to the point where she decided to take her own life. And she's an individual who,
by the way, just an aside, I've watched a couple of channels where they're trying to decipher the body language of Lindsay Clancy. There's like one group that I've watched that is credible that I haven't seen any videos on Lindsay Clancy. They're a group of 4. I think they're called the behavioral panel. I've seen a couple of others trying to like do the same thing just by themselves, and they're quacks. They're quacks. I
think a lot of people don't want to hear this because if they look at body language, they can interpret things, I think, the way that they want to interpret them. And I think a lot of people don't want to hear this, but body language analysis, especially if you don't know the person, is bullshit.
Is it like reading palms?
It's total bullshit, because if you don't know the person, you don't know their regular mannerisms, you don't know how they're like, they could be shifting around and feeling awkward just because they're awkward and this is a terrible, stressful situation, not that they're lying. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a million different ways you could probably interpret someone's body language, and body language analysts are usually just projecting their own like understanding of the situation onto the people they're watching.
I once went to a psychic with my wife.
Well, that was a bad idea.
Well, the psychic told us that they think that we're related, that we're brother and sister.
Okay,
like,
brother. Oh,
like, totally.
Okay.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Anyway, I want to interrupt. He's got one more point to make.
Okay.
He's going to talk about specifically his opinion about her having bipolar 2. He's going to talk about her awareness of the wrongfulness of what she did.
Okay.
And he's going to talk about his belief that she's criminally responsible of what happened on January 24th.
Yeah.
for most of her life, has been disciplined and like to control things, like to work hard, like to accomplish things. And one of the things that was striking about what happened with her between October and January is that she seemed to be doing her best, talking to the doctors, talking to the therapists, working on trying to get things accomplished in terms of lessening the anxiety and getting the right medications. And it wasn't working, and she couldn't help make it work. She could not control that through hard work and discipline and so on. And that had to be very frustrating, and I think got her to the point where it was very difficult for her to actually think about not being hopeless and going on with her life and so on.
Now, doctor, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether or not the defendant was suffering from a mental disease or defect at the time she killed her children?
I did, yes.
And what is that opinion?
That opinion is yes, she was. She was experiencing bipolar 2 disorder, depressive symptoms, and there were other things that were exacerbating that, making it worse. One is the
I have to stop the chat to read this chat from Juicy Prusy with the $10. Thank you so much, young lady.
Oh shit, I was muted. My bad.
How do I'm definitely not muted. How do courts allow expert testimonies when they seem skewed, and how do they regulate that? It just, look, in order to be an expert, you got to be designated as an expert. So there's this whole pre-trial thing that happens where you designate experts and you get their credentials. I'm off camera. You get their credentials and you figure out who they are such that they're qualified to offer opinions in certain areas. So they, psychologists, nurses, nurse practitioners, those kinds of people that have been experts in this case, they have a lot of leeway to offer their educated opinions, and they're giving their opinions. It's not facts. They're allowed to expand on opinions based on their qualifications. So they're supposed to be skewed. That's why I have battle of the experts. And so, like, for example, this guy has his own beliefs. That's why we're hearing from like 8 different experts in this case, because every single one of them has a different opinion as to what was wrong with Lindsay Clancy. However, every single one of them seems to suggest that she has some form of mental defect is my takeaway from all of the experts. And so the way that they regulate it is strictly, number one, the experts are qualified first. We're not just going to let anybody get up there and start rattling off opinions. So, for example, this guy's been in practice, I think, for 48 years. Resnick's was in practice for 63 years. We heard one person, I don't know if they were designated as an expert, but they were literally out of residency for 1 month. And so there's varying degrees of experts. But if you're going to testify as an expert in a field, you have to be pre-designated by the court. And if somebody objects to that, then they'll have motion wars about it, and then the judge will get to decide. But if you're designated as an expert, you get some leeway to expand on whatever your opinions are, and you get to be questioned about how you form those opinions, what your qualifications are, whether or not you consider this or you consider that, or whether or not your methods are standard in the industry, or whether or not you had your own ideas. And you're going to see on cross, Reddington basically obliterate this guy and his qualifications, and he does a really good job. I mean, never mind, he got yelled at by the judge earlier, but he does a really good job of just discrediting his qualifications and his ability to make any opinions on Lindsay Clancy's ability to have criminal responsibility on January 24th. And it's going to be a master class on cross-examination.
I'll say this, though. So postpartum depression, which a lot of people are honing in on this case, like, is the lead up to this had her experiencing depressive episodes, which a lot of new mothers feel, even if it's not their first child. They go through this postpartum depression, and that's a lot of what she wrote about in her journals. And so postpartum depression is a very common thing for mothers to experience. Postpartum psychosis is not. So you're not going to see like abundance of research into this very rare phenomenon. It's like a lot of people are never going to have written a paper about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't mean they don't understand psychosis in general. It doesn't mean they're not good doctors and they don't understand the criteria that goes into it. It's just that this is not something that a lot of people have really delved into too much because it affects so few mothers compared to some of the other issues we face. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I'm saying we haven't.
It's a really good point because Reddington keeps slamming these experts. So how many postpartum psychosis cases have you worked on? Well, right. 0. So then what in the hell are you doing here as an expert? And as opposed to Resnick, who I think in 63 years said he worked on at least 80 separate cases, and had offered opinions on something like over 500 or something like that. But you're right, because Heilbrun has not written any articles on postpartum psychosis. There was one that he wrote in 1978 that predated the DSM. Yep. So it was ancient. And Reddington,
but when you think about doctors who are kind of figuring out what field of or specific topics of research they want to do, especially if it's a psychologist PhD rather than an MD, you have to think also like when you're getting your PhD, it's a very uphill battle to try to get a relatively new topic or relatively understudied topic than it is to just build upon something that's been researched extensively before that. And I've seen that when I was, in grad school. It's like you're trying to come up with a topic for your thesis or for your dissertation, and you can't really just kind of go off the grain, because everybody expects you, journals that publish these articles, these dissertations, they expect you to go off of what already exists. So it's really hard to kind of break into something like that. So I feel like that's why we see mostly younger people probably who, do this kind of research on postpartum psychosis and understudied issues, versus like some of these guys who have been in the field for decades and decades, who they probably just built on the research that was already there.
The following has been a message brought to you by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I don't know what you're talking about, brother.
No, I'm
okay.
trolling you. I'm totally trolling you.
Okay.
By the way, you got a super chat.
JT, thank you for the $5. I still wish we had more research and supports. It seems that we only talk about is every 10 to 20 years when this happens. Well, that's the thing. It's if there isn't already constant research being done and bodies of research that are established, it's really hard to get some of these institutions and these bigger organizations to publish your work or approve your work, to get certain accolades or certain publications to even show your work to other people, if you don't do something that's already been kind of extensively reviewed and understood by other doctors, other researchers. So,
all right, I'm going to let Heilbrun finish,
Sure.
and then we're going to move on across
The sleep problems and the
I'm going to run to the
continued
bathroom.
adverse reactions to medication and so on. But yes, in my opinion, she did have a mental disease or defect on January 24th.
And doctor, to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty, did you form an opinion as to whether or not the defendant appreciated the criminality or wrongfulness of her conduct when she killed her children?
I did, yes. And I'm at the end of my report, I was very careful about how I phrased this. And so
Just sustain. If you could just answer the question regarding your opinion.
So yes, you formed an opinion?
I did, yes.
And what is that opinion?
That opinion is that she retained an awareness of the illegality of killing others, including killing her children. Her moral awareness of the wrongfulness of this killing was influenced by her strong desire to die and, if she were dead, not to leave her children behind. Some of this perception was realistic. For example, my children will suffer without me because they would have suffered, I think. And some of it was distorted. For example, nobody else can care for my children. But her awareness of the illegality and moral wrongfulness of such killing is best appraised by understanding these acts as a serious suicide attempt combined with altruistic filicide, killing her children out of love, rather than as a response to command hallucinations.
And did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether Ms. Clancy was able to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law when she killed her children?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
That her capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law is, again, best understood by considering the seriousness of her suicide attempt and her strong desire not to leave her children. She demonstrated such self-control throughout the day on January 24th, and her actions between 5:15 and 6 p.m. that afternoon were influenced by her depression and her hopelessness about her life and the desire to end the pain she had experienced since October. Although this depression and hopelessness influenced her decisions, she retained control over whether, when, and how she carried it out, and the inclusion of her children.
And doctor, did you form an opinion to a reasonable degree of psychological certainty as to whether or not the defendant
It really bothers me that I had to read his opinion like that. That just really puts me off, man.
was criminally responsible when she killed her children?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion, my clinical opinion, since I'm not the decision maker here, but my clinical opinion is that she was criminally responsible on January 24th.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Now we're going to move on to Reddington's cross. And he starts with basically an extreme attack. I mean, he comes out swinging, man. And the thing about Reddington is I could not have imagined to do a cross-examination as good as what he did. It's not perfect by academic standards. Mm-hmm. It's not anything you would probably teach in trial advocacy. Or like trial team or something like that in law school. But he's just so naturally conversationally combative in just this endearing way that he has full permission to do. And the way he's getting around it is, gosh, there's few trial attorneys that could just basically go up there and do whatever they want and they get away with it because they have sold you on their conviction. And therefore, if you're stepping out of pocket, the jury forgives you, because they know that you really believe in your case. That was Clarence Darrow. that is Reddington. I'm not comparing the two, although I necessarily am. But there are certain trial attorneys that just have that effect. And Reddington, I cannot think of another trial attorney, and I'll put Alan Jackson in that category. Johnny Cochran, whatever you think is the greatest 20th century attorneys, trial attorneys, or whatever. Reddington's ability to do a pissy style cross, as my friend Lauren Knighty had
Pissy, yeah, that's right.
His above reproach. He's just amazing at this, and
I think it's, you're a lawyer. You've watched a lot of lawyers. I think it is subjective, and I think the people on the jury, they're gonna have to make up their own minds about how they feel about it. But like, also at the same time, I can't imagine they don't hate the prosecutors. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of people don't like the prosecutors, and you're
I think
right.
most people don't like the prosecutors.
I just know this. I could definitely do what the Commonwealth is doing. I could definitely get up there and do that. I can't do what Reddington is doing right now for Lindsay Clancy. I guess that's my measure. Okay.
Well, I could probably do what the prosecutors are doing, but
you might be able to.
My hair is finally long enough for a bow, and I know how to fuck something up. So
I'm going to buy you a bow. You know what? Put them in your merch store.
All right, I know what they were trying to do with that. Like, I know they were trying to honor Cora, one of the victims, but it just came across so poorly.
I didn't get why people were fixated on it, and I disregarded it altogether. It didn't matter to me. They wear bows if they want. I don't care.
It just depends on, I guess, who you are and how you look at it. But like I said, it was to honor the daughter who she killed, and it just came across really poorly to a lot of people, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Here is a Reddington crossing Heilbrun. Oops.
Just call him Kirk.
What I would say is, no.
Did you tell this jury, in addition, that Lindsay made a different statement when she was in the hospital? Yes or no?
What I said to the jury is...
I'm asking you, sir, did you make that statement to this jury?
What I intended to say...
No, not what you intended. Can you answer my question? Yes or no?
No.
Now, is Dr. Heilbrun aware of the concept of post-intensive care syndrome?
Post-intensive care syndrome.
Yeah, PICS. It's called PICS.
No, I have not heard of post-intensive care syndrome.
Is Dr. Heilbrun aware of when a person is coming out of major surgery and has been subject to anesthesia, that it is known that they have delusions, hallucinations, make statements that don't make sense? Are you aware of that, sir?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And is that from your personal experience, professional experience? Because you didn't know what PICS was when they asked you, right?
Yes, it's not from my personal experience or my professional experience.
You received a notification to evaluate Lindsay Clancy on this criminal case from the district attorney's office, right?
Yes.
And do you recall when you received that notification?
It would have been sometime before January of 2025, because that's when I started reviewing the documents that they provided.
Okay, so January of 25, January of 26, and then in the spring of 26, you go to the Tewksbury Hospital with Mac and you interview Lindsay, right?
Correct.
So how many months is it from the time that you were appointed or requested or asked to help the DA's office to the time you saw Lindsay? How much time passed?
Probably about 18 months.
About a year and a half. And how much time passed from that point going backwards to January of 23?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Okay, January of 23, you add a year, that's January of 24, right?
Yeah.
It's 1 year.
Yeah.
January 24, you add a year up to January 25, that's 2 years, right?
Yes.
January 25 up to when you and Mac finally go out to Tewksbury to interview this young lady is how many months?
Well, it would be about 3 years.
Okay. And are you telling this jury that it's good, using the term loosely, medical practice to interview a young lady like this 3 years after the event for purposes of helping the DA, in your opinion?
Do you mean in the context of a forensic mental health assessment?
All right, I got to ask you a question, Lauren. Resnick Resnick interviewed Lindsay 3 months after the incident. And Mac and Heilbrun interviewed her approximately 3 years after the incident. Is there a diagnostically significant variable there that we should consider regarding the accuracy of what they have to say about Lindsay Clancy?
I don't know. I don't know. But the thing is, like, shortly after an event like this happens, if somebody was in true psychosis and they wake up, they might not remember entirely what happened. Your memories are fragmented, and then certain cues can bring those memories back. So I would say that sometimes over time, your memory is better. Sometimes you remember more. Sometimes you're more accurate. But then sometimes, you know, our memories get distorted over time, especially if you are somebody who's really mentally ill and you're trying to cope with something. Your brain might kind of distort some of these details. You know what I mean? You might be in some sort of denial. So I really don't, I couldn't say.
So is the length of time discrepancy overstated by Reddington?
I think so, but I think that if you don't really think about it too hard, he could be convincing here.
See, now, when you say don't think about it too hard, I take that to mean a layperson interpreting what he's saying. Because as a layperson's like, yeah, 3 years after the fact, get out of here, buddy. The other person, residents,
So
3 months after, that makes sense to me.
If you're not somebody who's sitting there thinking about how memory works, and let's say you know somebody who's been in an accident or something like that, and you know that how their memory has been over time. Like, if you're not really thinking about it too hard and you're not applying like some sort of personal bias to it, and you're just listening to what he's saying, then I could see that being persuasive.
Okay, so in other words, it's probably something that the prosecution should deal with on redirect or something.
They won't, but yeah.
I know. Okay.
Sir? That's the only reason you're here, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So can you answer my question?
The answer to your question is the sooner that I'm able to evaluate somebody after their involvement in the alleged offense, the more closely I can come to using that current state information as something that is relevant to their mental state at the time of the offense.
Okay. So in other words, yes, it is better to see them sooner rather than later, to coin a phrase.
That's probably
right?
true.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And have in mind January of 25 that you were retained. But and again, normally this isn't an issue. Who cares? But how much money did you make on this case? As they want to ask my doctor, how much money did you make on this case?
That depends when I'm finished. But I mentioned earlier that I had spent 180 hours before coming to Plymouth.
How much money did you make on the case, Doctor? Simple.
Well, it's not that simple, but I'm being paid at $300 an hour.
Okay, so how much money did you make on the case?
Well, $300 an hour times 180.
What's your last billing?
I've been billing monthly, sir.
Okay, you must know what the total billing is up to this point, don't you?
I actually have not added it up.
How about you just give us your best?
I actually don't care how much money he's made on this case. Everybody makes money.
All
on
of
this
these
case.
experts, no matter what, are getting paid. So that actually irritates me more than anything. I'm like, don't pretend your experts aren't paid.
But he's doing it because they did it to him.
Yeah, I think they're all annoying in that regard.
Well, let's see. Probably up to this point, it's been about $54,000.
$54,000. And it will be more, right? When we get finished with you today, right? It'll be more.
Yes.
Okay. So you received from me by certified mail video interview of Lindsay by my guy, Dr. Resnick, right?
Correct.
You received the notes from Dr. Margaret Spinelli, right?
Yes.
You received the notes from my Dr. Paul Zeisel, right?
Yes.
You received the report that was prepared and submitted by Dr. Philip Resnick, right?
Yes.
You received the report prepared and submitted by Dr. Margaret Spinelli, right?
Yes.
And you received the report prepared by Dr. Zeisel, right?
Yes.
And then I said, if you have any questions, give me a call, drop me a line, whatever, but we never talked until today, right?
That's correct.
All right. Now, you have a curriculum vitae that talks about that you are a clinical psychologist, correct, as you've told us yesterday, right?
Yes.
Have you ever treated a woman in postpartum psychosis?
When I was a staff psychologist at the forensic service at Florida State Hospital.
When was that, please?
That was back in 1982.
82?
Yes. I had a therapy group, which was comprised of women who had killed their children. They were severely mentally ill, and at that time, it was important to recognize the severity of their mental illness. And so I worked with them in a group at that time.
Okay. And this is 44 years ago?
Yes.
All right. And where was it?
It was at the Florida State Hospital in Chattahoochee, forensic unit.
How many of these people did you have a chance to interview in group or whatever you did?
There were 4 or 5 in the group.
4 or 5. Okay. Well, you are also a forensic psychology expert working for Park Dietz and Associates, right?
I have an affiliation with Park Dietz and Associates, yes.
Yes, but that's basically, that's the letterhead that you have on all your stuff, right? Park Dietz and Associates, Inc. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You know Mac, do you?
Do I know
Yeah.
Dr. Mack?
Yeah, Dr. Mac, yeah, the guy that was here testifying.
All right, he's going to go on about his qualifications and the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the more interesting stuff happens at around 150 when he starts getting into his direct thoughts about Lindsay Clancy and the pushback, and it's the most interesting one. I'm just going to fast forward.
Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, I think we're just going to do this witness today.
Okay.
Because the FBI witness is still. I thought they were going to finish today. They didn't finish today. They only got an hour into testimony with the FBI witness, and so I'll save that for tomorrow.
Cool.
So we'll leave that, and then we'll just finish with this guy because it will give us more time because there's a lot of meat on the bone. This and the revelation that he didn't even listen to the 911 call. There was a whole 911 call that everybody has made a big deal about. This guy didn't even listen to it, yet he's making conclusions on the basis thereof. Anyway, let's get back to, let me fast forward to this testimony.
I think his conclusions were based on his interview with Patrick. I think they were, you know what I mean? Like, so it was, you know, what he heard, but he heard it from the guy who made the 911 call.
For sure. Yeah. But, well, you know what? You're just going to have to wait and see.
Fine.
This next bit of testimony, he's going to talk about, well, Reddington's going to troll him a little bit. And then he's going to talk about her being in a wheelchair, that he met with her for 10 and a half hours over 3 days while she was on medication. And she knew that she was meeting with them specifically so they could form opinions that the prosecution was going to use against them. And how much of that did you take into your notes when making your expert opinions about all of these things? In other words, she knew that he was an adversarial interview.
Okay.
And so perhaps maybe she wasn't going to be giving him all the information. I don't know. But tell me what you think about this. Let's get started.
Don't remember things like how many times I talked to the DAs. That's part of it.
But basically, in your conversations with these 2 prosecutors, sir, did you talk to the state police at all, detectives?
I reviewed a massive amount of reports, some by the state police, some by other individuals. So I reviewed records for many, many hours.
And when you got involved with this case 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, you'd agree with me that it was quite publicized, right?
Yes, I would agree with that.
You've heard of confirmation bias, I'm sure, right?
I have indeed.
Yes. And however many times you talk to the DAs and review the information, would you agree with me, sir, that before you met with Lindsay in Tewksbury, you pretty much had an idea that this woman was a beast, killed her 3 kids, didn't you?
I would not agree with you at all.
So you had an open mind when you went in there to Tewksbury to see and speak to for 3 days, Lindsay Clancy?
I did my best to have an open mind, yes.
You told us yesterday you had some difficult decisions to make, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So when did you first meet Heilbrun?
When did I first meet him?
Yeah.
That probably would have been late 2025, early 2026.
Okay. Around the same time that you first got involved with the case?
No, it would have been considerably after I first got involved with the
Where did
case.
you meet him?
Where did I meet him?
That's what I said. Where did you meet him?
Virtually.
Oh, virtually.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like a Zoom thing or
Yeah.
FaceTime or something.
Exactly.
You ever meet him in person before you went to Tewksbury?
No, I didn't.
So did you guys have a plan to meet up somewhere before you went to evaluate Lindsay?
In the lobby of the hospital.
Did you stay somewhere the night before?
I did, yes.
Yeah, where'd you stay?
I don't remember.
You know, were you with Mac that night?
No.
No? Did you stay in a private house?
No.
You stay in a hotel?
Yes, I did.
Wasn't a van down by the river, for sure, right?
I don't remember the name of the hotel, but it was a hotel in
All
Tewksbury.
right. So you're in a hotel, you meet with Heilbrun Mac in the parking lot, and then you go into Tewksbury Hospital to meet with this young lady, right?
Correct.
And the two of you, day number one, you spend how many hours, the two of you, questioning her?
4.5.
And day number two, you don't bring Mac with you, you're by yourself and you administer the psychological testing, correct?
Correct.
And how long was that, sir?
3 hours.
And day number three, how long did you speak to Lindsay in the hospital?
3 hours.
So what was your total period of time over a 3-day period that this young woman was dealing with you and Abram Mack?
10.5 hours.
So for 10.5 hours, this young lady is in a room, in a wheelchair, being questioned by you and Abram Mack while she's on medication, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And she was still answering your questions, trying to be cooperative and being affable and friendly, you put in your report, right?
Yes, that's right.
Did at any time she express to you that she was tired and wanted to take a break?
We offered her in the beginning.
My question, sir, was... No, he's not going to, he's going
No,
to... My,
hold on. Why don't you ask a specific question, Doctor, if you listen to that question, okay?
my question, sir, was at any time did you or Abram Mack offer to her to take a break?
Yes.
Did she accept that offer?
Once she did, and once she did not.
And basically indicated that she wanted to get through this interview and get it over with, right?
Yes.
You weren't her buddy going there to talk to her those 3 days, were you?
No.
She knew that you were there on behalf of the district attorney's office to testify against her in a trial and say to a jury that she knew and was able to conform to the law. She killed her 3 kids. Isn't that right?
No, that's not right.
So,
Lauren, I have another question.
What's up?
As I listen to this testimony, I recognize that Reddington's doing an amazing job, but the value of this, to me, this testimony, the value of it and the points that he's scoring is zero. It doesn't matter to me.
No.
How does it come off to you as a non-attorney?
I find this boring and irrelevant.
Well, you could have said something. I could have skipped it.
Oh, well, I thought you really wanted to hear it.
No, I specifically wanted you to hear it because I wanted to get your impression of it because I had thoughts. I'm curious about how it's hitting the jury.
This is boring and irrelevant. There's nothing weird about this. There's nothing significant. I don't know why he's doing this.
Yeah, I mean, because he's basically saying, okay, so Lindsay knew that you were an adversary, and so why? Yeah. I guess the implication is why would she give you the straight answers? Why would she give you the real answers? I imagine she wasn't lying to the guy. I mean, she was giving him something that he was.
In my opinion, the only thing that's establishing is that she might not be truthful when talking to certain people, and that's not something you want to say. But you know,
but nobody's ever accused her of malingering, not even this guy.
Not malingering per se, but when he says like he thinks that she was, not incapable of conforming her conduct, that's sort of pointing at malingering in a way.
You think so?
Yeah, not outright per se, but like
I know what you mean. Like
maybe
like
saying her symptoms weren't quite as debilitating as she suggests is kind of what he's saying. It's not malingering per se, but it's
in other
sort
words,
of creating a picture of a more intense symptom than she was actually having is kind of what he was saying.
Based on her symptoms, he would have expected different conduct.
Right.
Got it. All right. Well, based on what you just said, that is not interesting at all. I'm going to fast forward to, I mostly want to get in the point where this one was a beast, wasn't she? She was completely, the confirmation bias thing.
The beast thing was kind of like when he said you thought of her as a beast. I thought that was kind of crazy because he seems to have been very intent on listening and as kind of unbiased as you could be coming in for the prosecution. I felt that he was very understanding of her situation. I felt he was sympathetic to her struggles. I think that, obviously he thought that she could have stopped herself from killing her children. But at the end of the day, he wasn't saying she's a liar. You know what I mean? So he wasn't saying like she's lying about everything. She's just a psycho murderer. He's saying like she was mentally ill. Yes. However, she went too far and she could have stopped herself.
All right. Well, we're going to get more of his opinions on that. Let me fast forward to 158 and then he'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
Records that were provided to me by individuals who were a part of the investigation. And a lot of that were interviews with people who had known her before or were currently friends with her, things like that.
okay. So things like that. I'm asking you, sir, about with her 7-year career as a nurse, labor and delivery nurse at a very, very well-established hospital. Did you talk to any of the nurses that she worked with, or did you review any of the records of her work reviews? Anything like that?
No.
Would you agree with me, sir, that she also, by all accounts, is and was an incredible mother, taking care of her kids?
I would describe her as a very good mother, yes.
And in fact, sir, in the past 6 weeks or 5 weeks, there hasn't been one person that's had one thing bad to say about her other than these two. Isn't that right?
Sustained.
Did anybody, to your knowledge, come into this court in front of this jury and say that Lindsay Clancy was a bad wife?
I don't know.
How about bad mother?
Again, I don't know.
So in your readings about her as a mother, you were able to see that she would sing to her daughter when she put her to bed. That's in the reports. You read the reports, right?
You might have to ask me that question.
You know Rascal Flatts?
I'm sorry?
Rascal Flatts. You ever heard of them?
No.
Okay. So if I suggest to you, sir, that Lindsay would sing to her daughter every night, is that important to you?
So this particular part of the questioning is, I don't know. I feel like it's not very effective. It was the least part effective. And Jack Fox, by the way, says if in general, if I'm on the jury, I'm wondering why the attorney keeps trying to trip this guy up when he seems to have really listened to and observed this and observed Lindsay. And I think it's a byproduct of, number one, the guy seems genuine, like he genuinely is trying to do his job. He's being forthcoming. He's not hiding anything. Mm-hmm. And Reddington is getting mad at him, and he's trying to induce in him some kind of reaction, and it's not really landing the way that he's hoping.
This is like Rascal Flatts thing and the singing to bed at night. So like the thing is, even if that's true, that doesn't even support their theory of the case, that she had a sudden onset, acute episode of psychosis. It doesn't matter if she sang her daughter to bed at night every night before. Yeah, so I don't understand this line of questioning at all. Like, why are you doing this?
If I'm reading Reddington correctly, I think that he thinks that this is their most effective expert, and so he's putting all of his energy into it, and he's trying to trip her up, because this is if anyone's going to score points for the Commonwealth, it's not going to be any of the other five. It's going to be this guy.
You don't think the last one is as
Mac?
good?
No, Mac was
no. The last one, that's the BAU guy.
Oh, we'll get to him tomorrow. We'll talk about him tomorrow. For now, we're going to stick with this guy because of time. And by the way, Juicy Prusy with a 5 says, what are the regulations for a qualified expert? Are the requirements state or federal based? There are federal requirements and there are state requirements. It seems most are paid for liars, in my opinion. First of all, every expert that testifies, like 99% of the time, every expert that testifies is getting paid for it. I just had to designate witnesses, and we were going through this whole selection process of witnesses, and every single one of them charges a retainer, an hourly rate to look at your evidence and make informed opinions about the case and write reports and prepare for testimony. Everybody gets paid. There's no getting around that. The designation, the regulation, every law in every state, both state and federal, every law is geared around this idea of making sure that the person is actually qualified, such that we're going to designate him as an expert. If there's no objection to the designation, then it's up to the judge to disqualify him. If the other side wants to object that this person is not disqualified, then they'll write a motion, and then we'll figure it out in written motions. But that's the vetting process. It's we're designating this person as an expert. These are their qualifications. Then it's up to the opposing side to disqualify them based on however you think. But it's not going to be based off of stuff like, oh, well, you didn't, you interviewed her 3 years after the fact, and our guy interviewed her 3 years after, or 3 months after the fact. And so therefore your person's opinion is not relevant. They're not going to go off of that. If they have the requisite education, the requisite experience, and the body of expertise in which they're being produced as an expert, then most likely they're going to be qualified. It's going to be up to the jury to decide who is a liar and who isn't.
I usually echo that sentiment. It seems like most are paid for liars. I think you can pay anyone to say anything. It's cynical, but I do think that in most cases, when I watch the experts, I'm like, you can pay somebody who will think what you want them to think. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not necessarily because they are, changing or saying what they say for pay. It's that you can find somebody who has a tendency to come to certain conclusions that will support your case, and you would pay that expert. So like, that's kind of how I feel a lot of the time, especially with psych experts. I feel like you can pretty much find anyone to say what you want to say, and I never really put too much stock in it, to be honest.
I won't disagree with you on that, but I will say that there is a game that is played that if they're going to, they can't just say whatever they want. It's got to be based on some form of reality, and it really depends on who you're litigating against, honestly. I will say that the experts in this case, save for a few, are all really well qualified. I think this guy Heilbrun is really qualified. I thought Resnick is really qualified. They're the two best experts that I've heard from in this case so far. The others, you could take it or leave it, but they seem to know what they're talking about. But let me continue with this.
Your evaluation.
Yes.
You didn't know that, though, apparently, right?
I knew that she was very good with her kids, paid a lot of attention to them, spent a lot of time with them, and really enjoyed it.
Even right up to within hours of their killing, she was making snowmen with them, right?
Yes, she was playing with the two older children out in the backyard.
And then bringing her life experience, which you testified yesterday that she never had any abuse in her life, was raised by loving mother and father, good student, hard worker, great mother, good friend, wonderful wife. She then randomly decides to kill her children by strangling them. It's the facts we're dealing with. Yes, sir. Right?
No, not right.
So
That to me, that question right there was a direct appeal to the lay people of the jury. He's playing off of a common sense angle. He's trying to appeal to jurors that are not psychologists, that are not lawyers, they don't work in the medical field, and saying, so you mean to tell me that this lady's been normal all of her life, and then all of a sudden she just up and strangles her 3 children, and it wasn't psychosis, or she wasn't possessed by a demon or something? Make that make sense to me. That's like this appeal, and he doesn't even really get a good answer to it, but that's him talking to the jury more than anything else. He closes out with that, and then they're going to take a break. I'm going to fast forward to this next
there was at one point when he asked, and we skipped over it at some point, but like he asked the doctor, like, what is akathisia? And the doctor couldn't answer. And I was like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, there was a couple of moments like that. I skipped over those just because I was trying to get to other stuff. But yeah, no, there were definitely times where he made this expert appear less than an expert. But there were also points where
that was a really bad one though. Like akathisia is like something you should definitely know off the top of your head. It's like akathisia it's like this restlessness and like constant need to like fidget or be in motion. You're pacing, you're crossing your legs back and forth, you're jittery, or you're just fidgeting a lot. And it's like, the thing is with akathisia, it's like the cause is most of the time medication. It's mostly the medication that causes it, versus like, so you can have like the symptoms with like an ADHD or something where it's the disorder that causes it. And I was just like, why don't you know the answer to that question? I feel like that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, he also got into some of the reason why she was denied entry into that one program, because she was overly medicated, and did she know about all those kinds of things? Yeah, definitely a bad look. He scored a lot of points with that, and it was very early on, but then I felt like Heilbrun, at the very least, came off reasonably competent towards the end as he was on there longer and longer. And so, but then we get to this moment at 3:15, and we're going to talk about the 911 call.
Okay.
This is the thing that I was previewing earlier.
Here.
in any event, the patient plans to reach out to previous provider who would be Jennifer Tufts, and she did that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one of the other things that you had made reference to, sir, is that you relied on is when her husband came home and found Lindsay on the ground in the snow after she had jumped out the window. He spoke with her, is what he told his jury. Right?
Yes.
And can you tell us again what it is that he said to her and what she said to him?
He said, "What did you do?" And she said, "I tried to kill myself." And then he said, "Where are the kids?" And she said, "In the basement."
Now, what is your source of that information, sir?
It was in the records, and I also did a collateral interview with Patrick Clancy.
Did you listen to the 911 tape?
No, I did not.
If I tell you, would you be surprised, sir, that she had significant damage, not only to her back, her spine, and was hemorrhaging, but also to her throat?
No, I would not be surprised. She injured herself very badly when she jumped out that window.
Probably got that from the medical records.
If I suggest to you, sir, that if you listen to the 911 tape as it relates to Patrick Clancy interacting with her, that she can only make grunting noises, would you be surprised at that?
I would be surprised, yes.
And you never listened to that tape?
I did not.
Went into McLean Hospital, and that would be the locked wards of McLean.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Patrick the one that testified and said that she specifically said those things?
Yes, and some of the reporters in the courtroom have given an account of what they heard because they played it in front of the reporters. They just didn't stream it, and they heard Lindsay trying to communicate with Patrick at one point, saying basement. They're in the basement, but like she was kind of mostly grunting and like unable to say much. So it was most of the part it was like unintelligible. So,
but they could decipher words.
They could decipher singular words. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. But they definitely heard Lindsay on the 911 call, and so maybe Patrick's
Yes.
memory
Correct.
is imperfect.
So one of the reporters at least heard her indicate to him that the kids were in the basement, but she didn't say that she killed them or anything like that. She couldn't communicate much.
But that's not what Patrick said either. So, but
he said that Lindsay told him that she tried to kill herself, and then also that the kids were in the basement. So he's asking her questions. So if he says like, "Where are the kids?" she says basement. That's kind of what he was getting at. But as far as she told him she tried to kill herself, I don't know because I haven't heard the audio. So I couldn't tell you.
Was going to be my next question. Any reporter that heard that 911 call hear her say those words, which, I mean,
I
the
don't
phone
know.
wasn't right in her mouth, so
I've read transcripts because they were allowed to transcribe and describe what they heard, but they weren't allowed to record it. So I don't know as far as that goes.
Okay.
In hospital, she was there for 5 days, correct?
That's correct.
And then she was released at her request to attend Cora's birthday, right?
Yes.
When she was released, would you agree, sir, that, while she was there, she continued to describe her mood as numb, denying things like that she's not having hallucinations?
I'm going to fast forward to the mania cluster specifically because I want to get your thoughts. Here we go.
Exercise to try to avoid drugs and try to get herself out of any depressed state that she might be in after having a baby, right? No problem with that.
On the contrary, it's a good idea if she can do it, and it's something that she used exercise all her life to help manage her mood and do better.
One of the questions the DA asked you yesterday is about the manic state or hypomanic state, or exercise or things of that nature. And you answered that she did some exercise. Well, she did more than some exercise right after having Callan, didn't she?
She did.
What did she do?
She got up at 4 a.m. She ran 3 miles. She did half an hour on the Peloton, did an exercise class. So she was doing a fair amount of exercise.
How about a road race? Shortly after she had the baby.
Yes, it's my understanding that she did that too. Yes.
During that period of time while she's exercising and running and road races and all the rest of it, would you agree, sir, that coincided at the same time that they were involved with the cleaning out of the garage and removing property and selling things? Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Would you agree that at the same time she was doing the beach blanket bingo or whatever it is on television, where she's selling people things like videos and lost money doing it?
Would I agree what?
Would you agree that she was selling videos online and it turned out that it was a scam and she lost her money?
I would agree that she was involved in something like that. I didn't know that she lost
we
her
have
money.
the exercise, we have the scam, we have the hypo cleaning, all of that. Would you agree that is just a little bit indicative of what you said to this jury that you were struggling over, trying to find manic, hypomania? Agree with that?
I would agree that those could be symptoms of a manic episode, which I was having a hard time identifying as she was clearly experiencing something like that. But I did end up with a diagnosis of bipolar 2, and that reflected my thinking that some of those things that Mr. Reddington has just described could be symptoms of a manic disorder, although less serious than a bipolar 1 diagnosis.
That makes sense.
Lauren, interpret for me.
So mania and hypomania are like, hypomania is a little bit, it's not as intense. Like you might get some indications of like an elevation in mood, and you might get some more like energetic symptoms, but you're not in full blown mania, the way someone with bipolar 1 would be. And I think the thing with bipolar 2, which he agrees, I believe he agreed that was her diagnosis. People think like, well, they agreed that bipolar 2 was her diagnosis, so what's the argument here? The thing is, with bipolar 2, you don't usually have, like, you wouldn't have psychosis so much in a hypomanic episode. That's almost never the case in my experience, from what I've seen and from what the doctors that I worked with have diagnosed some of our patients. But like, you would see psychosis at times in a depressive episode with somebody who has bipolar 2. And I kept seeing comments from people who are like, bipolar 2 patients don't have psychosis. That's not true at all. They definitely can. It usually occurs in a depressive episode, which I think makes sense given her, like, a lot of her presentation that we've heard about. She does seem to have been more in a depressive episode than anything sort of manic or hypomanic. So I'm confused as to why he's trying to suggest that she was manic, when I think that it makes way more sense to me that she was having psychosis related to a depressive episode, because she was feeling very depressed. And as Patrick has described, as her mother has described, very depressed. So I don't really know why we need to go here so much, but that's, I guess we're going to question that.
Well, it's the point. Like, it's the entire defense, and really, is the Commonwealth's case is they have to show, number one, the defense is banking their entire case on a psychotic episode, psychosis, postpartum psychosis, and we've heard from every single expert in this case has come up with a different diagnosis for Lindsay Clancy. And the point that I was making yesterday is where I land with that is, obviously there was something wrong with Lindsay Clancy. Obviously she had some mental defects as it relates to the McHugh test. The question is, and she gets to pick either door 1 or door 2 or both. Could she appreciate right from wrong? Could she conform her behavior to right or wrong? It's either or with those. And so it's really the entire case. And if reasonable doubt is the standard, my point is, if none of these people could figure out what's wrong with her, nobody could come to a consensus, then I cannot reasonably rule out that it wasn't a psychotic event. So how could I possibly find her culpable under that scenario? But he's going to go through this testimony. He's going to speak to a little bit of this, and then we'll close it out with that and wrap it up. But I really am interested in your thoughts on this bit of testimony.
Mental illnesses involved here, right?
Yes, there were.
Okay.
It's just a question of which kind.
Semantics.
Yes.
You talked about thought broadcasting, right?
Yes, I
And
did.
thought broadcasting, sir, would be if somebody hears a voice and is concerned that somebody else might have heard it, right?
No.
Okay,
Thought broadcasting.
That's what thought broadcasting is. Are you aware that Lindsay Clancy indicated to anybody that she was hearing or having these intrusive thoughts in her mind? Yes or no?
Yes.
Did she indicate that she was afraid that people could read her mind or knew what these thoughts were or whatever they were in her mind, intrusive thoughts?
She was afraid of that. And so one of the reasons that I asked her about the difference between hallucinations.
All right, hold on, please.
I can't be more
The
clear,
question,
Judge.
all right? And then if the Commonwealth wants to follow up, they'll be able to do that.
All right.
Go ahead.
Did she, according to Dr. Heilbrun's review, all the information in all the hours of time,
Yes.
determine that she was afraid that people could read her thoughts or knew what her intrusive dark thoughts were?
Yes.
Who did she say that to? Not just who?
Well, she said it to me.
Okay.
She said it to Dr. Mack.
Yeah, I'm sure she said it to Matt too. Put you guys aside. Who else, like people, normal people, did she say that to? Not to be not normal, but I mean people like friends or family or citizens or whatever.
I believe she said it to Patrick.
Okay.
And she may have said it to others as well.
She may have said it to others as well.
I don't remember who else she said it to, but she said it to Patrick.
Well, how can you come in here and testify about a young lady that is saying to people that she's having thoughts that are intrusive and dark and that she's worried that other people are reading her mind and know about it, and you don't even know who she said it to?
No, overruled.
That pause is
one of the
so
things
bad.
that she said is that her thoughts were kind of intrusive and loud, and I mean, that sort of thing. And one of the things that she said was that she thought that because of that, other people might be hearing them or might know what they were.
Like even worried about dropping little Cora off at the school, and she was afraid that the teachers could hear her voices or thoughts. Read that.
I did read that, and that's one of the reasons I asked her for the difference.
Right. But when I asked you if there were any, so that refreshed your memory that there was another person that she was concerned about.
Yes, I believe that's right. Yes.
Somehow that pause, right? I mean, everybody noticed that pause. But
He looks really flustered.
Yeah, I mean, because how do you even answer that? But
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like this guy is not all that sure about his diagnosis. I bet Jack Fox would say this guy's not sure about his diagnosis. He wants to do a good job, but he's not. He's just not all that sure about what he's saying right now. The fact he didn't have a ready-made answer the same way that Resnick had a ready-made answer when the Commonwealth tried to hit him with the gotcha. It just didn't land the same way. And so if you're trying to erase reasonable doubt from the minds of the jury, and this is your best expert, and he doesn't appear to be that confident in his diagnosis, and he can't deal with a question like what Reddington posed and the way that he posed it. How could you come in and answer this question? You don't even know what she said and when she said it or who she said it to. And then he pauses for like 15 seconds and he rattles off something that he had said like a couple of hours ago. How could you have any confidence in what he's saying? You like him. He's a likable guy in spite of Reddington's attempt to try to discredit him, but he doesn't appear to be all that confident in what he's saying. At least that's my read on it. What do you think?
I mean, there were a couple things here and there, like that long pause and the gulp. I don't know how to answer this question. That does call that into question. Yes, I think. I don't know. So I'm a little confused by some of this stuff because, like, when you listen to her mother talk and some other people, it's like you never hear about this thought broadcasting. If I remember correctly, I don't know if her mother ever mentioned the thought broadcasting, but like, I'm kind of like, where is this coming from now? To where that distracts me a little bit from what we're talking about, and to going back to trying to remember it and all the other testimony and everything I've ever heard. Was
the
that
thought broadcasting? That was a couple of days ago. I want to say back in day 18 or 19, it became a thing. Maybe earlier, but it's definitely come up with multiple people at this point. And so enough to where nobody's objecting to it. Certainly not the Commonwealth, because it's certainly been made part of evidence.
Documented, probably.
Yeah, I don't remember who specifically said what, but it's definitely been more than a couple of witnesses that have referred to it. But I'll continue with this. We're gonna finish up with him. We're almost at the end, and then we'll wrap it up there.
How about her friends? Do you recall her telling her friends that she was worried about the teachers being able to read her thoughts?
I do not.
You indicated yesterday that one of the concerns or one of the issues or possibilities was at the time of the killings was acute psychosis, right?
I thought one of the possible explanations.
I don't want to let you run off, sir.
No, Counsel, next question.
Do you agree, sir, that you testified yesterday that at the time of the killings, one of the possible concerns that you had was whether or not there was an acute psychosis?
One of the possible explanations for her motivation and her state.
So the answer is yes, right?
No, overruled.
That's what you said yesterday, right?
Not exactly the way you phrased it, and that's what I'm responding to.
Yesterday, sir, you were asked the next part of the evidence or what you saw against acute psychosis, and you referenced this discussion of whether this was postpartum. So let's stop there for a minute. Again, you know that postpartum is not a diagnosis, right?
I do know that, yes.
Okay. But the reason that it was not, as you put it, postpartum is because she was about 8 months away from having given birth to Calvin, right?
Yes.
And most of the explanations from the authorities, like DSM-5, would point to maybe 1 month after birth, or maybe give a little bit, maybe 2 months after birth, or something
That's
like
frustrating.
that. That's what we said yesterday.
Yes.
The way that's defined is frustrating.
In the DSM, you mean?
I totally disagree with the way they define that. Yes, I think that the 4 weeks, like, that's nuts. That's nothing. Like, defining it as within 4 weeks or even within 8 weeks, I think is insane. Like that
I
might
don't
be
know.
the time. That might be a typical time you see it start to manifest. But like to suggest that something is not a postpartum symptom and was not caused by the like childbirth because it's more than 4 to 8 weeks out. Like I think that is a mistake.
My genuine belief, and without ever having heard that coming into this trial, was that it was a factor like something like 18 to 24 months out. Just that would make more sense to me because that's like the hardest time.
It takes way longer than that for a woman's body to recover, for her hormones to go back to normal. Like that doesn't even make sense. Like I don't know who came up with that when they were writing this book, but it was a stupid decision.
So outdated then, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
What's that based on in Dr. Heilbrun's mind? What's that cutoff about? 1 month, maybe 2?
It's based on what DSM-5 says, or the Cleveland Clinic actually said 6 to 8 weeks, if you look at their website. So it's based on accepted authority within the field.
Is it World Health Organization accepted authority in the field?
It's one accepted authority, yes.
Okay, and what do they say?
I don't know what they say.
Like, would you be surprised if I told you they say up to a year that a woman can be experiencing postpartum psychosis or postpartum depression? Up to a year or even longer?
There are different kinds of outcomes and time periods that different
I'm not
organizations
asking about
use.
outcomes
Yes
and
or no
time
question,
periods. I'm
mister.
asking about the World Health Organization cutoff for a woman
Look
with
at you getting
postpartum
all
depression
pissy.
or psychosis.
Well, because he's annoying me now because it's a stupid
Well,
standard.
I don't know.
And then you indicated, now it could be something else. And there was certainly some stuff that I saw that were symptoms of depression and other sorts of things that she experienced in January, but it was given the time, it was less likely, I thought, to be postpartum.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit to where he starts talking about psychosis.
I think it depends on a number
Or the
of
command
things in terms
hallucinations.
of how it changes, and I'm not in a position to offer an informed opinion on that, really.
Obviously.
Objection.
That'll be stricken.
Well, that was
Doctor, if Ms. Clancy
unnecessary.
had a genuine command hallucination, which in fact did cause her to feel compelled to carry out the killing of her children
Yes.
and herself, would you agree that she lacks substantial capacity to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law? If
That
in
would-
fact that was a genuine command hallucination that she believed?
That would depend on a number of things. It would depend, for
Let's
example,
not go through a number of things. So your answer is no?
and my answer would be it depends.
Okay, so it depends.
Next question.
Would you agree, sir, that in
That is a number one. He went for the home run right there. He wanted to get a yes or no to that. The fact that he says it depends is a victory for Reddington.
Sure.
Anything less than a no
Right.
gives rise to reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he asked it directly. But he didn't ask it until after he sat there for like 2 hours, grilling him on the stand and getting him to doubt his own diagnosis and destroying his credibility and destroying his confidence, really. And so at the very end of all of that, beating him up like that, he asks the fundamental, crucial question. In your opinion, did she have the ability to conform her activity to the law, basically? And then he says, nah, it depends. That's a win. That's reasonable doubt.
The answer would have to be yes.
If he says anything other than no,
Well,
then
if it's a no, that means she did not have the ability to conform her conduct, right? So he would need to say yes.
well, yes. Well, the opposite of what I said. Yes. Yes to what you know what I mean. You
Yeah,
know
I
what
do.
I'm
I do.
All right.
December of 2022, and she told you that at that time frame she had these thoughts that were in her head that would, quote, pop into her head, intrusive thoughts that included that her brain was damaged and that she had to kill herself. And she told you that, right?
She did.
Do you believe she was telling you the truth, sir?
Yes.
Rewind.
She was telling you the truth, that she had to kill herself. Intrusive thoughts that included that her brain was damaged and that she had to kill herself. And she told you that, right?
She did.
Do you believe she was telling you the truth, sir?
Yes.
What do you think of that?
I mean, there is a difference between intrusive thoughts and hallucinations, and you have to kind of get into the specifics of that. However, the way they're describing it as intrusive thoughts and him saying yes, I think that doesn't necessarily mean that she was incapable of conforming her conduct. However, to a jury, I think that plays out as, yes, she was totally, incapable. I think if I were a juror and I wasn't like thinking really hard into this stuff and I didn't, like think about and read about it all the time, I would probably think like, oh, he basically just agreed that she couldn't control herself.
Right. Because the questions were so close together. First
Right.
he said it depends, and then he says yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's masterful question.
Yeah.
Construction by Reddington. Just brilliant, man.
Yeah.
I stand corrected in one regard, sir. This morning I started off my questions by asking you about 49 years ago when you published an article on postpartum psychosis, and you agreed. You were in college or something. But in fact, it was not postpartum psychosis. It was about schizophrenia, wasn't it?
I'd have to think back 49 years, but I think that's right. Yes.
Transcripts of interviews with 32 schizophrenic patients, 15 male, 17 female, all with primary or secondary paranoid symptomology, were edited only to delusion-relevant material. Does that refresh your memory, sir?
It does.
Okay, so it wasn't postpartum psychosis. You've never written about postpartum psychosis, right?
That's right.
Okay. So
Yep.
finally, sir, would you agree?
Well,
And if you don't,
Awkward.
just say, no, I don't agree. Postpartum depression. Are there tests that can be administered to? I'm not talking about a guy who's upset about his job. I'm talking about a woman who's just had a baby, who's going through the postpartum period, exhibiting signs of depression and or psychosis, okay?
Yes.
All right. Would you agree with me? A person can complain that they're less able to laugh or see the funny side of their life. Is that a symptom, sir? If you know?
Are you asking me if that's a symptom of postpartum depression specifically or depression more generally?
Oh, no, I'm asking you about postpartum depression, sir. That's what I'm talking about right now.
All right.
Do you agree that a patient would complain that they're less able to laugh and see the funny side of life?
That's a symptom of depression.
No, you're going
Could
to
be
tell me it's a
postpartum
symptom
or
of
it could
depression
be-
constantly. My question is, do you agree that it's a symptom of postpartum depression?
Yes.
Okay. Not looking forward to things.
And let me just say,
Oh, no, I don't want to let you do anything. Can you just tell me if
Don't.
letting someone stopping looking forward to things is a
Jeez,
complaint that is common to postpartum depression?
yes,
Anxious and worried for no good reason.
yes,
And Lindsay complained of anxiety and being worried for no good reason constantly, right?
yes.
She blamed herself for a lot of things in her life. Isn't that right?
She did, yes.
And
This dude's
she was
cooked.
not looking forward to the
Yeah.
future. She was not happy with her life in the sense of the way she felt and wanted to go back to the way she was, right?
That's right.
How about complain? When I say complain, I don't mean complaining. It's just that that's a language you guys use. Complained about overwhelmed. Her day is overwhelming.
Yes,
So unhappy that she would cry constantly.
yes,
Sad and miserable.
yes,
Thoughts of harming herself, which is, according to the Mass Department of Mental Health, a flag in and of itself. She had thoughts of harming herself, right?
she did.
Okay, so those are all of the postpartum depression symptoms that a person can have, according to Mass General Hospital's 3-year review of postpartum depression and psychosis. So she hit all of these symptoms, right?
Those are symptoms of postpartum depression. They're also symptoms of depression.
No.
I don't care what
Brother.
I'm asking you, sir. Are they symptoms?
That's not, no.
he just said yes to all those, and now he's trying to like equivocate. That's
Well,
frustrating.
because what he's trying to say is technically true. However, he doesn't get to say that. So, like, some of those things that he was talking about could very well be symptoms of like a generalized anxiety disorder. However, they're not asking him about that. So you don't get to say,
Yeah.
yes, that's a symptom of postpartum, but no. I'm not going to let you do anything. You're going to answer yes or no. And then that's pretty much, he's done for. You
No,
know?
it's up to the Commonwealth to figure out how to redirect him on that. And
Well, they
they're not
don't
going
have
to.
the intellectual capacity to do that. I don't
No, they haven't thought this through.
No. So, I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to be
Depression.
mean needlessly, but like,
I was
I
gonna
feel like
say,
it's
like,
needed at this point. This is
Look who
this is
turned
a
to be all
needed
pissy,
criticism.
I feel like if you were cross-examining, you would be bullying this guy worse than Reddington. That's my impression.
Yeah.
In other words, Reddington now has permission from you to be pissy with this guy.
Oh, you can be pissy now. Yeah.
And that was my point. That's what
You
Reddington
get, to, you get to
does.
be
He
pissy
just,
sometimes. Yeah. Just don't be needlessly pissy. You know what I mean? Don't be pissy when he's being agreeable.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like charming when he does it somehow. When the Commonwealth does it, it's just unnecessary. Why would you do that to the victim's grandmother? What was that
Because
about?
the Commonwealth comes across as like a snotty, I'm a better Catholic than you shrew. And it's not good.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not saying, I don't know anything about those ladies and their personal lives. They might be very nice ladies who are just
They
trying
might
to do
be.
what they think is the right thing and they're doing their job. However, they come across in this courtroom as brainless, I know better than you shrews who don't really have the grasp on the subject matter that they're trying to argue.
They make a really nice Jello strudel. How about that?
Ew.
All right, he's almost done here.
Yes.
All right. And there's a tool that psychologists can use with a woman who's coming to a doctor for help because of the symptoms of postpartum depression. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what is that tool?
I don't know what the tool is, but I'm sure there is a measure of it. Yes. Of postpartum depression.
Okay. Have you ever used that measure?
I have not.
Have you ever read about it?
Possibly.
Do you even know what it is?
I don't know what it is.
Damn.
How about postpartum psychosis, sir? Same study. Hearing voices or
$300
a
an hour,
voice commanding
motherfucker.
a person to act. That's in the DSM, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Command hallucinations. Yes.
Delusional beliefs or distorted reality is a symptom that a person can complain of, right?
Delusional beliefs.
And
Yes, fixed false beliefs.
reality.
Yes.
Yes, just next statement. Confused, disorganized thinking. She had that, right? It's in your report, I think, that she was baking or making a pie or something and forgot where she was.
She was having trouble with memory, attention, and concentration.
All right. Anxious and worried for no good. Strike that. Apologize. Severe sleep deprivation. She had that, right?
Yes.
Rapid mood swings. She had that, right?
Not sure she had that.
Well, how about the time that Patrick told you that she would repeatedly find herself in the living room on the sofa and bury her head in the pillow and rock back and forth, crying hysterically?
When you said mood swings, that implies that at one moment you're feeling down and sad and depressed, and in another moment you're feeling quite differently. So
Right.
I
And
don't
she
see
took
that
the
the
kids.
mood swings she had.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, I don't see that she was experiencing mood swings so much as she was experiencing symptoms of sadness and feeling down and lack of motivation, which are symptoms of depression.
What is akathisia?
Oh, no.
AKASTHESIA, I believe.
Yeah, I'd have to look that one up.
Okay. Feeling overwhelmed. She felt overwhelmed.
She did, yes.
Not herself. Family seeing the change, obviously. Right?
Repeat the question, please.
Yeah, not herself. Semicolon. Family seeing the change.
Yes, correct.
Lord knows. I mean, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, her mother, her father, her husband, neighbors, people could see the change in her, right?
Yes, they could.
Okay. Continuing on with postpartum psychosis. Not herself. Thoughts of harming her children. That's a big red flag, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay. Thoughts of suicide. She complained of that, right?
correct.
Poor insight. She had poor insight at the end of January, didn't she?
I would
That's
not
what
say
Tuff
she had
said.
poor insight. No, I
Dr.
think
Tuff
she
said she
understood pretty much where she was and the difficulty she was having, and was aware of a number of things about that.
So I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
That's not consistent with her
Pretty
medical
straight.
record.
All right, so that was that.
Yeah.
That was brutal at the end. Look, he did fine for for a good portion of it.
Mhm.
It was rough in the beginning. He scored some points in the middle, but at the end, he just got absolutely obliterated. And what's the jury going to remember? They're going to remember the first thing they heard about him, and they're going to remember the last thing they heard about
Yeah.
him. The first thing
What is accusation?
they learned that he was unqualified, that he doesn't know shit about postpartum psychosis.
That he
scored
needs
all
to
the
look
points
things
he did.
up because he
And
doesn't remember things.
At the very end, he doesn't know whatever that word was. He had to look it up, and he agreed
Yeah.
with the defense's theory of the case based on the symptoms. Yeah, he was cooked. And you know what? When I say that I can't do what Reddington does, that's what I mean. That was a brilliant, masterful cross-examination. I don't think you understand how masterful it was. It was he aced it, man. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but what he needed to get out of that witness, he was a quack. Don't trust this guy. He knows nothing. I think he pretty damn well established that.
Mhm.
With the first 15 minutes of cross and the last 15 minutes of his cross, he got it in. Whatever points they scored, I think is going to be long forgotten. My impressions of the case, I got to tell you right now, and we'll get to because we're an hour into the FBI testimony. We'll wrap that up tomorrow. I'm assuming they're going to finish tomorrow. We'll see. with evidence anyway.
Yeah. Should be.
They had originally scheduled closing arguments for Wednesday, but we'll see where we get with that. But
I think he said they might. They're not sure if they will ask for a day off before closings.
I think that would be wise.
So probably Friday.
I think if I was trying the case, I'd want a day off to prepare for closing arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems reasonable. The question is the jury down with that? I'm sure they want to just get to it. But you know,
is it up to the jury?
No, it's not up to them. Of course it isn't. They're indentured servants to the Commonwealth right now. I know.
That's rough. At least they're not sequestered, I guess.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I'm leaning towards acquittal. Not that she's not guilty. Somebody yesterday thought when I said acquittal, it means that she's not guilty. That's not what I mean. I mean, she's not criminally responsible by the McHugh standard that Massachusetts employs.
Yeah.
That's all I mean. I'm leaning towards that just based on reasonable doubt, based on the fact that none of these experts, there seems to be no consensus other than she had a mental defect as to what was wrong with her, and nobody could rule out psychosis. As hard as
there's nothing concrete to point to and say the prosecution nailed this. It's not going to happen. They're not going to find her guilty.
Yeah, well,
unless they just totally go off their own, like they're just like ignore everything we just heard. We're going to go off of our feelings. Then yeah, maybe. You know?
I'm thinking extremely unlikely that it's going to be a guilty verdict. Extremely, just based on the quality of the case. Sometimes juries surprise you, you know. But I'm thinking, well, I don't want to say mistrial. I feel like that's a cop out. If I had to pick between guilty and acquittal, I'm thinking she's going to be acquitted of criminal responsibility.
Look, if the burden were shifted, I think she would definitely be found guilty. But it's not. So I think they're going to send her to an institution. They're not going to put her in jail.
No, that's exactly what's going to happen. And then they're going to have hearings every so often about her mental health. Right.
And based on what I've heard, so when people send you to a state facility like that or a long-term facility like that, unless you have immediate and imminent reason to keep somebody, they usually don't let you do that. So there's a good chance that she gets out within a couple of years.
That's what I've been saying. Like literally, I mean, she's going to be there for at least a year in a mental health facility. But then they're going to have another hearing where they're going to have to prove that she's still mentally ill. Mm-hmm. If they can't do that, then she's getting out. You're right. They could be
everything that we've heard from people and from the notes that they read from the staff on the unit suggests that she is no longer in a state of psychosis, that she's not having thoughts of hurting herself. There's, when it comes down to it, there's no reason in the immediate present that they could keep her on that a court would approve of. I know people think back to well, she killed her kids. Yes, but they're not allowed to use that as an excuse to hold on to her. They have to go with right now, imminent threat to somebody else or themselves. It has to be immediate. It has to be currently present. It can't be she did this or that in the past.
Yeah.
So
you're right. I think it's a good time to end.
Yeah.
We should do this again tomorrow night because I know you're going to want to. And you shouldn't be by yourself when you're doing a case like this.
No, it's boring by myself. Because then I have to listen to that man say, yes, but a million times.
Well, that, and then, I have to listen to my own voice the entire time, and I could be a bit tiresome if you have to do that. So.
I agree. You're exhausting.
I have my moments.
Yeah.
Concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
Words to live by. My daughter walks around saying that all the time now. That one and this one.
All that jelly and no toast.
And then this one.
Don't think. Feel.
She plays my soundboard all the time. And then she's in love with this one. And then, of course. And then.
My voice doesn't even go that high.
That well, that's the big one.
All right, I gotta go. It's 2:15 here.
It's time to go to bed.
Yeah, it is. All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
guys.
folks. Love you all. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you later.
Bye-bye.